Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome all new listeners and welcome back those who have heard my content in the past. If you want to know how I fast tracked my way into working in professional sports and how you can do the same, you need to tune into this episode. Before I go on to the podcast, first and foremost, happy holidays, everyone. I hope you guys are doing amazing and truly just spending time with your family and enjoying this whole ride. As we close into finishing up the year, a lot of us, we reflect and we appreciate and we give gratitude. We're grateful for all these things, and I really hope that you're enjoying your time with your family because I know I am. I've been traveling, and so it's been wonderful. It's been great to close out the year, and I'll share a little bit more on what I'm doing into the new year with you. But first and foremost, just want to say happy holidays. What is happening for those who have asked about my family and all that's happening with all the medical issues in the background? Things are improving. We're just waiting on more and more information as we navigate these current challenges. But how's my daughter's teeth? They are getting better. We're just trying to find long-term solutions. Fun fact: when you knock out, for those who don't know, when you knock out my daughter knocked out her two front teeth riding her bike, and she's 5. And when you knock out baby teeth before they actually are like naturally coming out. So after researching this, basically teeth follow a tunnel, and baby teeth have a huge long root. And I know when they come out, they seem very small, but when teeth are knocked out, that pathway that the next tooth follows is now gone. So once you take out the root, there's not an easy path. So we have to wait to see how well the new adult tooth comes in right after that. So we're now seeking out consultations with orthodontists, and yeah. So happy holidays, everyone. All right, on to this podcast. Why are we talking about this? Well, this was a great question that somebody asked. How did you do it? How did you get into pro sports within your first 2 years or 3 years of working out of PT school? So, you've been practicing for 2.5 years. How did you get into pro sports? And I'll share my story because it's very possible for any of you that are out there that are wanting to do the same, or that pro sports is in your wheelhouse and that's what you want to do. In this episode, I'm here to share my story, how you can learn from it, what not to do, what to do better, ultimately give you a platform to know what's possible and how to do it step by step. I'll share everything inside this episode on how you can become successful. And some of you might love this, and some of you might say, wow, that's definitely not for me. And that's perfect too, because ultimately, a lot of us aspire to do certain things. It's better to be aware now before you go full force into the future and commit to something that you don't love. All right. So how did I fast track my route into pro sports? I'll kind of navigate this. Let me tell you a little bit more about my journey leading up to this. And for those who have heard this before, here we go again. Right. So I went to school out in St. Louis, Missouri, WashU. I did an internship with the Shirley Sarman, the kind of movement expert. Her system is called the Movement System Impairments Approach. So I did some time there. I sound like prison. I did some time there and absolutely loved it. And I wanted something different. I wanted a residency at the time. There's only 5 of those available, and they were each taking one student or one resident. So applied, got a position at the Ohio State University. Did my time there, and I did a 15-month residency, and it was fantastic for me. Why did I do it? Um, ultimately, if you're like me, you want to be truly the best version of yourself. And I think, to be honest with you, this all stems from, I think, we're going to get a little heavy on what forms you as a character and what your next step is in your career. And I'll get a little deep, but to start, I think I was raised by my grandma, right? And my parents were I had a different childhood, and we would move apartment complexes every 6 months just to avoid paying like the full year's rent, and it was a whole drama. And I remember this growing up as a kid, And I remember my grandma working really, really hard, and she worked two jobs to really give me a better life. And I was a knucklehead. I spent my time doing other things I shouldn't have been doing. I got myself in trouble. And what I noticed was that, how hard my grandma worked and how hard, my mom and my dad did to give me whatever life they could. And I realized that, man, I wasn't sure if I really wanted that life inside what I wanted for my future. And so I didn't know how to get there, but I just knew I just didn't want, I knew what I didn't want. And for my grandma's work ethic, I remember thinking, gosh, I want my grandma's work ethic. Like this lady would just, I mean, literally kill herself at work just to I think she was making 275, worked her way up to $4.25 an hour. And I remember this thinking, gosh, that's a hard life. And I realized that as like 12, 13-year old, you start to see, you really grasp life. And I was like, I they have worked a lot to get to help me to get where I'm at. And I know that, as a parent now, you only want your kids to be a better version of you or supersede you or whatever that is. And I thought, well, man, I don't want to do this. And I don't want my kids to be able to have to do this. And I thought, I just want to be the best version of what I possibly can with it within my means, within my control. So I just kept going for like being the top of anything. And in undergrad, I believe it or not, I got a 4.0. I went from a knucklehead in high school, completely illiterate, to a 4.0. And for me, that was just something I was proving it to myself. People say like, "Oh, you work hard," and all these other things. I really felt like I wasn't as good as I potentially could be, and I really felt for my parents. I really felt for my grandma, and I was embarrassed of what I came into college with, being illiterate. I felt really embarrassed about it. So to compensate for that, I was just the best version of myself. I was just like, I was fully ingrained. There was no middle zone. I would study 12, 14 hours and just crank on it. And so for me, I wanted to be the best version. And some of you can find your own stories in that, but I didn't want to settle for anything less than what I possibly could because my parents didn't work as hard as they possibly could to put me to a basic level. I really wanted to be the best. So I went out and I tried and find the best PT school. It was number one ranked at the time. I entered the DPT PhD program, which was one of three at the time. I wanted the residency, one of five at the time. And even though I wanted sports, I ultimately just wanted the best, the best. For some of you, it's like, you find the best clinic, you find the best schools, you find it, it was all about being the best. I didn't know any other way of life. Like that's all I knew to do was just aspire to be the best. So I did that, and I put myself in that environment where, in residency, you find yourself around people who you think you're good, right? And I remember, man, even in PT school, I thought I was pretty good, and it was like 50% of my class were like valedictorians in high school. And I was like, whoa, this is a different group of humans around me. And that just pushed me to be better and really challenge myself. And I was like, gosh, this is you get humbled. And then I went to residency and I was like, oh, I'm coming from a good kind of school, good framework. I come from good grades. I've worked my way to get here. And then I become a clinician. I'm like, holy moly, these people are like disgustingly good. I remember at the time there was probably this is in 2008, and specialist certifications were getting more popular at the time. But I remember like 10 to 14 out of the 30 clinicians had some form of a specialist certification. So all I did was aspire to be like these humans. And I think there was like 20 to 30 of us who were in a clinic, and they were at different times, right? So you had different shifts, and I remember thinking, like, I want to be who these people are. And so I was like a sponge, just constantly learning. Like, what do you do? How did you do that? Like, constantly asking questions, keeping people after work, during their lunch hours, the beginning of the day, calling them, texting them, emailing, whatever it was, it took for me because I just wanted to be them. I was done with my studying. So I know I could be a bookworm. Like, you can control all the environment, but when you have patients and athletes who come to you with unexpected environment, like you don't know what's going to attack you. So when you're in that environment, you can only prep for so much, and at some point you have to develop skills. So the more develop your skills and your framework and approach, the better you are. And I remember thinking like, I am nothing, and like I am not good at what I do. And it took my mentors and it took, patients and athletes telling me like, Chris, you're doing really good at your job and you only know what you know. And I remember thinking a year into my residency, I finished it, at the 15-month mark, thinking like, I know nothing. Like the residency taught me a lot, but it taught me more of like, I am such a small fish in a big pond. And I was a little frustrated by that, and that's why I wanted to just constantly stay in that environment. So I stayed on to Ohio State's team because I really wanted the environment. I knew that this was the best place to set me up. Little did I know also that I would meet my wife, so that was a benefit too. And ultimately, I went to Ohio State, firstly to meet my wife, the woman of my dreams, and really create the future for myself, but also to put myself in the best position professionally because I knew I had to give up something. Because I knew if I went back to San Diego to work in clinics that I've worked in before, I knew I wasn't going to be the best version of myself. Because once you see what the potential is professionally, and when you're surrounded by 10 to 14 people who have specialist certifications, who are in a residency. I think at the time now, there's probably 7 or 8 residencies at The Ohio State University. When you're constantly teaching, when you're constantly near physicians, you're constantly working with athletic trainers, strength and conditioning specialists, you realize how average you really are. And that's what I loved. I loved being the worst clinician possible. I loved it because I had always strived to be the best. And when you're at the lowest rank, you work even harder to work yourself up. And I think if you're in an environment where you're, semi the best, you kind of become complacent because there's no reference point. So as I navigated Ohio State and I went through all these things, I just put my head down and I absolutely worked. People ask me, Chris, what do you think your strength is? There's a couple different things that I'm really good at, and I think a lot of you are as well. One of them is I'll put my head down and work in any environment. If you put me at an Olympic Games, you put me at a Super Bowl, I will work 3, 5, 10 days straight with minimal sleep and I will perform at my best and you won't see how tired I am. I like it's a superpower, right? I have this conversation with my team. Everyone has a superpower and I can just go, like just go. And I realized that gave me different opportunities. People would realize Chris is different. He just goes. He absolutely goes and my intent is pure. I really just want to be the best. I know you're really good, but I'm just going to be better than you. That is like my view. So all my mentors, I was like, I'm gonna like that sounds good. You teach me right now, but I will be better than you tomorrow, today, whenever, in 5 years from now, I will be better than you. And I just knew that because that's been my mission, my life motto, and it all stems from not wanting to have the life that my grandma did and she created for me. I was much better than that. I didn't want to be part of that anymore. And it got me to a certain point, and I was like, at Ohio State, I was like the bottom of the totem pole. So I just cranked. I just put hours in. I just put a lot of time. But I think my other superpower is I genuinely care about anybody in my path to become the best. I genuinely care about anybody there. And I'm willing to help any human being that wants to support me, but also wants to ride that wave with me. So as I, worked with other mentors or I worked with other residents, I became a senior resident and then a staff clinician, and I started helping the residency more. And there was athletic trainers who were also in there, and I just volunteered my time. I was like, where else can I learn? I know I'm not going to be able to get paid for this. I just want to be in your face. So I spent time with athletic trainers. I spent time with the physicians. I basically created the residency outside of the residency. Just spent time volunteering, putting my head down, constantly researching it and I think I can confidently say, that anybody who listens to this who has been part of my journey and been part of Ohio State will know that that created a lot of attention for me. It created a lot of support. People were like, you are willing to put the time in. You're a sponge. I'm very humble in what I do. I'm very confident in what I do, and I just want everybody to rise and ride this entire wave with me. And There was an athletic trainer, Tim. If you should listen to this, I owe you a big hug and a huge thank you. But Tim was an athletic trainer who started working with USA Rugby. He got a contract with USA Rugby, and he was doing seasonal work, so he would travel with them. I think he liked rugby because he worked for Ohio State's rugby team, and he got connected with USA's team in traveling with their 15s or their sevens team. And he made a trip down to San Diego for a camp for USA Rugby. This at the time I worked at Ohio State, and he went down and he did I think a 1 month stint. And this is where a lot of athletic trainers and physical therapists can earn opportunities to work with Olympic level athletes. You basically go to the Olympic training sites and you're a volunteer, but you get anywhere from 2 weeks to a month worth of opportunities and exposure. So Tim had a month, and he met somebody there who was just hired on. His name is Richard Quincy, awesome mentor of mine. Q, you're amazing. And Q or Quincy was a PTATC, and he ended up taking on the new role as a medical director. And I guess he started talking to Tim and said, "Hey, I'm new here. I need some support. I'm considering bringing on a staff physical therapist. We've never had one at the San Diego Olympic Training Center, and I know I'm going to have a high volume of post ops, clinical care support." He said, "Do you know anybody?" And Tim, for whatever reason, threw my name into that hat right there and then. And it was only because I never mentioned to Tim that I wanted to come back to San Diego. I never mentioned that. All I did was just put my head down and work and ride that wave, support anybody in my way. And Tim threw my hat in. So Tim comes back and he says, "Hey, Chris, I just want you to let you know, I don't know if anything works out, but I threw your name into the hat of the Olympic Training Center looking for their first physical therapist." And I just finished my residency. I was about a year out from being a staff clinician with the team at Ohio State, and I get a phone call. I can remember this vividly. It was like mid-November 2010. 2010, probably November 14th, 15th, right about the middle. And I was dating my wife at the time, and she had invited me to watch a movie, grab some popcorn, and grab some ice cream. And on the car ride, I get a phone call, and it's probably 7 or 8 at night, and it's from the head medical director of the United States Olympic Committee. And he says, "I'm medical director, and I'm calling to ask if you'd be interested in becoming the first physical therapist to work at the United States Olympic Training Center in San Diego, California." And I was like, um, I would take this seriously, but if someone's playing a joke on me, I really appreciate the joke, but who is this? He says, "No, no, no, I wouldn't take that lightly. I'm the medical director, and I'm literally looking for to hire you for our San Diego location." I said, I said, "I'm so sorry. I would be very interested." And he said, "Great. Let's get you on a flight out here in the next 2 weeks. I know it's the holidays. Let's get you in between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Let's get you on a flight." So I said immediately, "Let's do it." And I'm dating my wife. I had just started dating my wife 2 weeks prior, and I had to make a decision. And I spoke to my wife, and I said, "This is an opportunity of a lifetime. I have to looking at this because this is me being the best version of myself." And she said, "I understand." So I take a flight out mid-December, meet everybody, and for those of you ever interviewing and you're like, "Hey, what do you do on an interview?" I think I think I've interviewed probably 1,000 people total. I've as of now, as an employer, as an intern, I used to be responsible for the United States Olympic Committee's internship program for their medical volunteers. So I used to interview those people. I used to do interns for the front desk for the Olympic Training Center. I do interns right now at my company, Sports Performance. I've done a lot of interviews, and I've also been part of the admissions committee at San Diego State's DPT program. So I've done it for my fair time of looking for, who's the best candidate, what do you do? And for those who are looking for interview tips, the best thing I could tell you is just be yourself. And Physical therapists, you are notorious for being this, don't take this the wrong way, uptight, extremely professional human being that you can't separate while in a building that happens to be, a physical therapy clinic. It's like the minute you put on your superpower polo and khaki, it's like it's very hard for you to just relax and be a human. And I think it's because school has taught us that, like, we have to be super professional, and people need to respect us as a doctorate level profession. And I think that's bullshit because you serve patients, you serve people, right? And you're a person as well. And whatever you have, a master's or bachelor's or a doctorate, doesn't matter. Ultimately, how well can you connect with people and how well can you maintain a relationship and form a relationship is what separates really good clinicians from others. And what I did was, on my interview, I was just myself. And at this point in my career, this was the biggest interview of my life, right? At the time, and all I wanted to do was do really well, and all I knew to do was just be myself. And I think that school and getting the best grades possible, it puts a problem. It puts a bump in the road to help be yourself. And I literally just hung out with the staff. I just asked them genuine questions. What do you love about this place? What don't you love? What's the hardest part? I was just trying to create conversations because I didn't want to ask all the vanilla questions, right? Like, i- I wanted to genuinely know about the staff and the team that I was going to be around all day, every day, because that is what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for a job. I was looking for an environment because I was just coming from, to me at the time, was the pinnacle, right? The pinnacle of education and opportunity was The Ohio State University. And when I did that, I didn't want to come into a inferior or a lateral move. And for me, I was like, tell me about this place. What can I learn? What am I going to learn? How am I going to do that? What experiences can I have? And what I wasn't asking was what everybody else wanted to know was, what's the pay? What's this? What's that, about the structure, about the job? What are the benefits? I was like, I don't give a shit. All I wanted was an opportunity. That meant more to me than anything else. And after talking to Q or Quincy afterwards, he's like, that's why you got the position. It was just, you fit the team because of your desires to be the best version of yourself, not because you thought the position was going to put you in a better professional position. And I didn't. I was pretty selfish at the time. I wanted what was good for me only. And taking that job, in hindsight, how did I get that job? Was absolutely putting my head down, putting myself in the best possible environment, being a sponge, being humble, being a good human being, pushing people out of the way who were in my way, but respectfully and professionally, and saying, I'm going this way. What do you need? Do you want to come along this ride or not? And in that path, I broke a lot of relationships. I didn't want people in my world who weren't in that same vision. And it was tough. I learned very early on that you have to fight for what you want, not for what other people want. And it was, I've never actually said this. This is probably a good and a bad thing that, I didn't have my parents around me all the time because if I did, so what I didn't mention was that my grandma passed in 2008, the day or the week after my graduation. And so she never got to see me like actually practice. So that took all my like I no longer had to work for anybody. I didn't have to look to anybody, to somebody, say like, I'm proud of you. That was never my desire. And once my grandma passed, like, there was nobody to make make them proud of. And so I was truly doing it for myself. And I think people get tied whenever you have parents that you're working for, like, you want to make them proud and happy. And when you do that, you're not doing it for yourself. And what that does is, you're afraid to make mistakes. You're risk averse because you don't want them to see you fail. You're scared of that. And when I didn't have anybody around, I had nothing to lose, right? Like, if I failed, who's going to judge me? It was on to the next. And so that made me less risk averse. And that's PT's 101. That's the thing that delays you from making the next step in your career, taking that SCS, taking the CSCS, taking the residency, not doing the residency, joining programs, doing mentorships, whatever it is that you do. Like the reason why you don't is because you're so risk averse, because you're scared of people who are going to judge you for failing. It's not that you don't, because if you didn't care about people judging you, you would have done it already. You would have 100% done it already. And so how did I get the position? I was genuinely one of the hardest workers on this planet. And I was the most humble human being to do it and push people out of the way at the same time. It's a very interesting equation, right? Like I am a bulldozer when it comes to my professional path. But I will say, as I pass you, you want to come with me? Let's do this. And it's not like I'm pushing people outside, down, out, and around. I literally want the best for everybody. And I know that if I surround myself and put myself in the best possible environment, I will be the best version of myself. And for some of you, if you work in a clinic that you did it because it's convenient to your home or it pays the most, you're probably in an environment that's not really helping you thrive. And I'm going to give you three pieces of this to help you put yourself in the best position to either get a job in pro sports, your dream job, your professional career path. I'll give you three things right shortly. But what really helped was, even if I worked hard, let me put this in context. Even if after PT school, I didn't do the residency and I worked really hard, I wouldn't have got this job opportunity. It's not what I'm going to say. Do I think that residency got me the job? No, absolutely not. Did my hard work get me the job? Absolutely not. Tim helped me get the job, but how did I meet Tim? I worked at Ohio State as a resident and he saw my work ethic. Why did Tim vouch for me? Because he saw my work ethic, because he saw me as a human, because he thought this is the best place for this person. How would I have met Tim? I had to go to the residency. I had to put in the work ethic. I had to use the work ethic and everything that my grandmother, my parents helped me get to. Would I have done that if I didn't do the residency? I still would have worked hard, but I probably wouldn't have met Tim. Now, I would have worked hard in another environment. Now, if I would have worked hard in an average clinic, outpatient ortho clinic with average team members who don't push themselves, I would have probably capped because none of those people are probably going to get the opportunities that you're looking for. So, is it working hard that got me the job? No. Is it being myself? Not just that. It was a combination of working my ass off, putting myself in the best possible environment where you're more likely to get those opportunities, plus being myself, plus working hard, plus just grinding and not expecting anything out of that. Meaning, never once did I expect anybody to do anything for me. And what Tim did was out of the kindness of his heart because he saw what my potential was. And I'm forever grateful. But then that just snowballed into the next. Got into pro sports, did the same thing. Outwork everyone. Just be humble. Be a good human. Keep pumping and cranking on that same dial. That creates more opportunities because there's more people just like that who were looking for that. I got to travel with more events, more teams because they saw that I would fill up the water bottles. I was early. I put in the time. I cleaned up afterwards with no expectation. I stayed late. I worked weekends, sometimes night shifts, just to get athletes what they needed. Coaches loved that. They said, I want you to travel with us. So I got to travel to New Zealand, several countries, I think 7 to 10 countries, just by that. And when those coaches saw that, they wanted a piece of that. They wanted a team member just like that. And so when you do these things, it puts you in the best possible position. So I put in the title of this podcast, how I fast tracked my way into pro sports 2.5 years into clinical practice, meaning from PT school into pro sports in less than 2.5 years. It was a 15 months of actual residency. So after that was about a year and 3 months of actually being a staff clinician. So how just over a year of being a staff clinician did I get my hands and feet into pro sports? The residency helped being everything that my grandma created. definitely helped. Meeting and being in a network of people who are absolutely nuts, just like me, also helped. You put that into one big melting pot, and that's what culminates. That's what create is created, opportunities. So that's how I did it. And how do you do it? I have three things I wanted to share with you. Um, Here are my notes. All right. I love this. I heard this and I want to share it with you. All right. This equation is attitude plus mindset equals character. Now, what does that mean? All right. Attitude plus mindset equals character. So, attitude, let me put in context of my upbringing. So, my grandma and my parents instilled really good core values, right? And I would hope the same for your family, right? Like you never steal, you never lie, you work your butt off, and you work hard. You put your head down and work. They also taught me you respect others along that way, right? You have to maintain humility. You be a good human being, and you be the best version of yourself. That's just the attitude, right? And I think if you're listening to this podcast, you likely have all of those traits in you as well. And those are core values, right? Like that's what your parents instilled in you. That's what's been driven into you. But I mentioned earlier that attitude alone doesn't create the character or the result that you want. Just because you're working hard doesn't mean you're going to get the opportunities to work pro sports or your dream job, because that's where you probably are right now. You're stuck in a clinic that you maybe don't love. You're working your ass off. No one's recognizing it, and you're not getting the opportunities that you want. So there's something missing in this. So that's attitude. And I think that you have to maintain that same attitude. So attitude plus mindset equals character. Now, the mindset is something different than core values. Mindset is the environment that you're currently in. So the mindset that you currently have, if it is influenced by the people around you, because what was instilled over years was your attitude, right? Your core values. That's already there. Now, right now, your mindset is being um, affected by those who are in your immediate vicinity, right? In your community. So if you work in an environment where people are lazy, they're not really progressive, they just come to work and clock in, clock out, your mindset naturally is being pushed in that direction. So no matter how many podcasts you read, no matter how many books, because you're fighting total time. Volume of time is a big challenge. So meaning if you work 40 hours in an average outpatient clinic, and you listen to a podcast 1 hour a week, you read a book for 2 hours a week, 3 hours of development is really hard to conquer 4 hours of 40 hours of complacency. So your mindset needs to be shifted. You need to be in a place where you will have an environment where you're growing. People are pushing you. It's progressive. And if you're not in that environment, your mindset is not in the best place possible to set you up for the success. So even if you use the hard work ethic attitude of, have strong core values, be the best version of yourself, work hard. But if your mindset is to be average complacent and you're constantly risk averse and you're not making the decisions to actually create action on the thing that you want, you're never going to get there no matter how hard you work, what your parents taught you, and that worked for a while. But now you're at a point where you're just not, you're kind of hitting a ceiling or a wall. How do you go into that next level? You have to put yourself in a better mindset, meaning you got to be around people who are just like you. Not possible. So if you look at my story, my hard work got me a certain point. I said after PT school, even if I continued working hard in a clinic that was average with average clinicians, I would have never got the opportunity. Never in a million years. Never, 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 never. But because I was in an environment where everyone's mindset is super progressive, you got to be the best for yourself, and they work hard and they create opportunities, and people are attracted to that. That's what helped because I used my attitude, which I already had going into it. I put myself in a better mindset slash environment where I'm going to meet more people, change my mindset, know what's possible, figuring out what is impossible, and creating more opportunities. That is what created the character I am today. So my attitude plus mindset equals character. Right now, you as a character, the results of who you are as a professional are a result of your attitude and your mindset. And if your attitude is, I work hard, but your mindset is, you're in an environment which is average, you are an average character. That's where you will always find yourself. I promise you this. I mentor physical therapists monthly, weekly, one on ones. It doesn't matter. If you continue to be in the environment you in, you will never change. I promise you this. I'm not telling you to change your job. I'm telling you right now to change your mindset and be around people who are just like you or who you want to be like. And if you are at the top of the food chain in your current environment, you need to change that. And that's why I created my Sports PT Academy, because I knew there was people out there who just need a little bit of a turn of the dial. I don't care if you join any form of community, but it's got to be something bigger than you, something you're actually the bottom of the rung and you're actually trying to move up. If you don't do that, you will constantly be working on the attitude that your parents formed, which was you work hard. Yeah, that leads to burnout, and that leads to fatigue, and you can't sustain that over time. So you work smarter, use that same attitude that your parents did. You develop your mindset and put yourself in an environment where you're actually developing and growing versus trying to be the best, and you actually stuck to create the character that you want. So, attitude plus mindset equals character. Your character and your result of who you are right now is a reflection of everything that you've put into your mindset and into your attitude. So, don't work harder. Do not just work more. Don't do that. That will cap out at a certain point. You need to be in a place where you're actually developing your mindset. So for me, I think that can be your work environment. It could be the network that you're in. It can be going to, weekly meetings. It could be conferences. It could be CU courses. It could be weekends. Getting out and networking with people who you want to be like. And if you look at your current network right now, right? If you are looking at your three best friends, right? And they love to go out on the weekends. They love to go party, go do these things, but they're not really developing professionally. That's a reflection of who you are, right? So if your three closest professional friends, you're the average, you're the sum of those three people. And so if you look at those things, I hope that gives you a little reality check that if they're not in a position where they were, maybe you're out of school for a few years and you kind of become complacent. You're really only taking one or two CEU courses. You really don't do anything more than maybe listen to a podcast, but you actually don't do any action on that. You're really not growing. You're complaining about, that your like company's not giving you promotions or whatever it is, and you look to Instagram, you kind of get a little bored with those exercises. You go to YouTube, you get involved with some of those things, you try to implement them, but nothing really actually happens. You're just getting really good ideas, and you're actually not creating action. So because of that, that's where your professional growth is. You're kind of stagnant. You're working hard. You listen to podcasts. You watch YouTube. You watch Instagram, and actually your outcomes aren't getting that much better. You're actually not doing much more. As a year of reflection, it's the week of the holidays. It's recorded in 2024, the week of the holidays. As you close out your year, think of where you were last year, right? Just look at it as an objective measure. Think of where you were last year and compare yourself this year. If you're in the exact same scenario professionally, you really haven't grown despite all your work, despite listening to the podcast, watching the YouTube, creating the programs, doing all these things, taking one or two CU courses. If you're really professionally not any different, you kind of have to face a reality check of what is it that you want to do. So, how did I get into pro sports? A lot of the same attitude that my grandma, my parents instilled, put myself in the best mindset and environment possible, and it just constantly, those two things just kept like growing and organically growing. And even to this day, that's the reason why, honestly, it's the reason why I built my academy, because I was mentoring so many physical therapists who were ever asking the same question. So I just created a melting pot of the same physical therapists who wanted the same thing, and all I do is push them and mentor them to put themselves in a better environment. Sometimes just hearing that same question that you do, saying, "Oh, I got it," and now you have accountability to actually change on that. And people ask you, "Where'd you go from last month? What are you doing?" And the physical therapists that I mentor and those who are on my academy and listening to this, I'm very proud of you guys. And I think that one of the biggest thing I see in my academy members is that they're less risk averse. They're willing to try something because one, they're accountable to somebody else, but also they just need to know it is possible. And sometimes here's what happens when you're risk averse. You think about it, you delay on it. You're like, yeah, that'd be a great idea. Then life hits you, family gets hurt, health conditions, car breaks down. You meet somebody new, somebody breaks up with you, and then that idea of professional growth went out the window. And so really that's what happened over the last year, that you just let life hit you and nothing, you made no progress in your fitness, you had made no progress on anything else aside from you just manage the chaos of life. Get if you can plan for next year, that chaos is going to happen. Right now, I would love for you to just write out one or two professional goals that you need to get achieved and look at that and stare at it, put it on your refrigerator, and every month stare at it, because what's going to happen is life is going to hit you over this next year. I promise you, life is just going to just hit you in the face. Flat tires, somebody breaks into your car, your family gets sick, your kids' front teeth get knocked out, right? These are just going to happen to you. So the question is, how do you continue to grow knowing that all that chaos is going to happen to you? And that's the question I'll ask anybody in my world. How do you navigate this? If you know that most people's problems is they don't think, they don't actually plan, they just let life hit them, and that's the progress that they make, which is in the exact same place. So if you knew that those things were going to happen to you, how would you change your next year? How would you change your next year? Knowing that life is going to hit you, chaos is going to be there, and you won't have an easy ride. How does that change how you forecast it? Maybe you're making making so lofty goals, making reasonable incremental goals. So if you can list out one or two things that you want to achieve next December, what would they be? Uh, if you say, work in professional sports, all right. What's your attitude? What's your mindset? And if the character, the result you want is a PT in pro sports, there's a lot of things that need to happen in between there. So, if you're interested in my academy and like you're like, I want to change my mindset, I need to be in an environment. You have to be vulnerable enough to do that. That's the delay that physical therapists have. They're like, I'll do it on my own. I figured it out up to now. Your attitude will take you so far. I promise you. You need to be in a better mindset. I've been doing this. I am still in mentorship groups. To this day I am. Why? Because I get it. I understand it. It's so simple. But because you're not vulnerable enough and you haven't been able to do this on your own, and you refuse to ask for help, it takes audacity to ask somebody for help. I promise you. And you're talking about somebody who grew up in a very, very tough environment. I was literally poor. I ate out of trash cans. I was illiterate, and you better believe I refused to ask for help because I got to where I wanted to be without help. And then I just kept hitting walls. That attitude stopped at some point. And where I made the most growth is when I put myself in better positions with better mindset and better environments. And so if you ask me, that's what fast tracked it. Is it the residency? Not necessarily, but it's just the environment that I wanted. The environment for the residency happened to have the environment I wanted. So now I just surround myself with incredible people. That's it. And just push everybody else out of the way. That's just what it is. And that's what I created my academy. So if you're a sports PT and you're like, I work, I'm in a poor mindset at home. My home life is bad. My professional life is bad. And that's just a reflection of your attitude and your mindset. So there's no way your hard work is going to conquer that. So if you're looking for a change in mindset, and you're like, I have the audacity, I'm willing to be vulnerable, I need a new opportunity, I need those things in my professional path, that's what my academy is for. So if you're interested in that, go to drchrisgarcia.com/academy. If you're new to my world and you need a little bit more insight into how I can help you in your professional path, start with my Kickstarter. This is a great opportunity. It's in my 8-week online mentorship course. Great opportunity for you to just to get exposure to what real sports PT is. It's not like directs and corrective exercises and manual work. That's not what a sports PT is. It's learning how to manage people across time, how to develop better relationships, putting yourself in an environment where you'll be able to thrive. So if that is the place for you to start, drchrisgarcia.com/Kickstarter. Nonetheless, I hope this helps. It is a true story. Every inch and ounce of that is who I am, and got me to the place where I am and where I will be. And where I can promise you it'll just continue to skyrocket upward, because I'll continue to put myself in better environments, mentoring better physical therapists, and all while you continue saying, I'll do it on my own. I'll do the same thing I did last year and hope that gets better. And if you're stuck, You're never going to get out of it. I can promise you that. Your mission right now is to get out of that fast. It's like a bad relationship. What are you doing? Like people outside of your world can just see it. Like you're not going to be moving. Just get out, be vulnerable, be audacious, change your environment, whether that's with me or anybody else. I really don't care. You just need to be at a place that you're being the best version of yourself. If you're listening to this podcast, you have that desire at the very least. And if you refuse to do it or you need that support, I would literally get on a one-on-one call with you. Send me an email, drchris at drchrisgarcia.com. I will literally help you figure out what the next 6 months or a year needs to be. Send me an email. Do you have the audacity to do that? Can you just like do that first? And if you're stuck, nothing will help otherwise. Stop taking CEU courses. Stop trying to read a book. Like nothing is going to get you out of it. Action is. And the only way you're going to do that is having other people challenge you. I promise you this. Send me an email. Take my Kickstarter. Start the academy. Nonetheless, continue being the best version of yourself and change your mindset. All right. That is it. I'm off my soapbox. I hope you guys are doing well. Happy holidays again as we go into the new year. If you, I challenge you to be a little bit more audacious. Send me an email with your one or two professional goals. I want to know what they are. Like, what's the one or two things? And most people haven't thought about that. They just thought about the CEU course. They wanted to, but they weren't. They never thought about what the result is and what they want in their professional career next. Send me an email. And I'll give you a shout out either on Instagram or on the podcast. Send me your one or two things, and I'd be willing to help. All right. I will see you guys on the next episode. Enjoy your New Year's, and please be safe out there. All right. See you on the next episode. Take care.